Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I am the head coach at Grace Financial Coaching. And it is my honor and privilege today to welcome Justin Bennett, one of my colleagues. Justin is recognized nationally as one of America's top financial coaches. He has coached over 1,000 households and small business owners on how to win with their money. After a decade of coaching, Justin's clients have paid off more than $7 million of debt. And through his passionate speaking style, Justin motivates clients to take action on their financial goals. Justin, thanks for joining me today.
Suzanne, it's a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, Justin, you are the founder of Strong Tower Consulting. So, tell us about your coaching business.
You bet. Well, it started over a dozen years ago. And when I started as a financial coach, there wasn't a lot of us out there that was doing it as a business. And so when I said I was a coach, I was asked what sports team. And so I had, no, I'm a financial coach. And what I love to do, my passion is to help people who are struggling. They're going, listen, I'm making decent money, but where is it? I have no idea where my money's going. I had someone call me just the other day. They made $135,000 when they did their taxes. And they called me because they go, we made $135,000. I can't tell you where $1 went.
Oh my gosh.
People,
that's a good wake-up call, though, tax.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know the stats because you're a coach as well. I mean, 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 64% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings, and the average household has almost $100,000 in debt, not counting the home. That's stressful, and it's hard to have hope in that situation. And so my passion is to bring hope to people, regardless of income, regardless of where they're at, to go, this can be possible. My average client's paying off $10,000 to $20,000 in debt in the first 6 months.
Nice.
And it never gets old after 1,000 clients later, watching people get that light bulb moment, or for the first time had hope. I mean, yesterday I had a client, I have more than one client, but yesterday, this client that comes to mind, I have a session where I call it the magic session, where I teach them what they need to know, but show them where they are and what is possible if they make some changes. And at the end, they were excited, but the husband had this face, this look, I couldn't figure it out. And I'm really good at reading people. And I'm just going, I don't know what he's thinking. And I don't know, is he excited? Is he bummed? Where is it? And his wife's like, I think my husband's about to cry. And I go, really? Well, sir? And he goes, I had no hope that we would ever get out of debt until today.
Wow. That is quite the magic session.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I hear often when someone hires me as a coach and we just get started, like, why didn't I start this sooner? Oh my gosh, I can get out of debt way faster. I mean, we as humans are good at dreaming up the best possible scenario or creating the worst nightmare. And with money, we usually create the nightmare. And so I jokingly tell people the reason why people struggle to go into your office or mine is they think they're going to the principal's office.
Right. They think they're going to be scolded. They're going to be upbraided. They're going to be beaten up. They're going to be whatever, fill in the blank.
And I do tell people I do charge extra to yell and swear. But the reality is we're here to give hope. I mean, Proverbs 13:12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desired accomplished is a tree of life. And that's what gets me going every day to do this is who can I help get that hope again to where they go, wow, this can be me. I could be one of those people who get debt free, who have an emergency fund, who I'm not stressed. I have a plan. And that's what just gets me excited to do this each and every day.
Yeah, definitely. I just signed up a new client yesterday myself, and I focus a lot on the New York City area because that's where I'm from originally. And she said towards the end, she goes, I don't want someone who's going to yell at me, but sometimes I think I need someone who's going to yell at me. Maybe I should start charging extra for the yelling and the swearing for sure.
Right. Well, and I had another client yesterday, and you've coached long enough to know you can kind of read your clients. And these clients, I love them because they're straight shooters and they don't care if I'm blunt. And if you think about it as a coach, and then we go back to a sports coach analogy, what does a coach do? Well, they teach and they train. They encourage you. They cheer you on. They can even be a shoulder to cry on when things go off, but they're going to kick your butt and make you run a lot when you don't do right.
Right.
And so this couple, we already had kind of a thing where we could tell we could just be just real. And I kind of went into like, coach, you need to do this. And I really didn't yell at him, but I was just intense with them. And at the end, I'm like, I may have went a little too far. And I said, sorry, guys. I hope that was no, that's what we paid you for. We
Right.
want you. And for those listening, I don't go that crazy, but with them, I knew I could push the envelope a little bit. But they
You don't normally go all Bobby Knight on them. You're usually a little
right.
more Coach K.
I should do that.
Yeah.
Like kick a, I should do that sometime. Just kick my computer.
Throwing chairs through the background. It might really resonate with some people.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Well, Abby is with us today. Good morning, Abby. Nice to see you. So, Justin, I created this show specifically to help people realize we all make financial mistakes, specifically financial coaches. We're here for a reason, right? We didn't just fall out of the sky with no financial mistakes. Oh, Laura is here as well. Good morning, Laura. So, Justin, tell us, before you became this super successful financial coaching expert, what was the dumbest thing you've ever done with money?
You could probably have a 10-part series because there's a lot of dumb things I have done with money. And it's interesting, going back to the misconceptions of what they think about it. You're exactly right. I think anyone that's in a financial space, it could be a banker, financial advisor, insurance agent, tax person, coaches, there's this aura around us like we've never made a mistake. We've only been perfect. The reality is most financial professionals are struggling or have struggled. And I know I have. I mean, I was a third-generation banker who went to a private business school and a decade of banking experience. And by the end of that, I had nothing except 6 figures in debt, no money in savings, no money in retirement, a very stressed out household when it came to our finances, which leads into the dumbest thing that I've ever done with money. So my wife and I got married in 2004. At the very end of the year. And my wife had 2 kids from her first marriage. So all I had to do was add water, instant family. And a little sidebar is the crazy thing about our relationship. We're from the same hometown. I was the photographer at my wife's first wedding.
What?
There was no plan. And what makes it worse, this is before the days of digital. None of the pictures turned out.
What?
She was not happy then. We laugh now. But anyway, so I don't know if anyone could claim that one. But anyway, so we got married end of 2004. And so we're starting our family together. Again, she had 2 kids. So I went from 1 to 4. We both had no savings when we got married. We both had debt that we kind of merged together. So we merged our brokenness together. I knew nothing about budgeting at the time. Even though I went to a business school, I learned marketing, management, taxes, accounting, investments. I knew nothing about budgeting or how debt really works or savings or credit score. I knew none of that. And we were, even getting further into it because we didn't know what we were doing. And my wife came home, it was like 4 or 5 months later, she came home from a women's Bible study. And she was being humble enough in the Bible study to say, hey, my husband and I were kind of struggling with finances. And one of the gals in the group said, hey, here's a book, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. You should read it. Well, she was ecstatic. She comes home to me and she goes, hey, I found this book on how we can get our money under control. So the dumbest thing I ever did was I didn't listen to my wife.
Oh.
Not that, one of us tries to rule the roost or anything. But like God says 3 times in his word that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. My wife humbly said, we're struggling. God said, here's an answer. She told me that. I literally kind of stood straight up and I was offended back then. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm the banker. I'm the one with the degree. What does that guy know? I could probably teach his stuff.
Right. So I have to pause you there because now with your knowledge of Dave and Financial Peace University and Total Money Makeover and all of the things that have been imparted on you and me during our financial coach master's training and all that stuff, you have obviously heard Dave say that financial professionals can be some of the worst people with their money. So looking back on that little piece of this story right now, what do you think about that?
It's so true.
Yeah.
And we talk about all the time where a lot of financial professionals, and if you're one watching, I'm not picking them, but a lot of them are broke. Yeah. I was. One of my first clients was a senior vice president of a Fortune 500 company. Now, that's not a normal client of mine. Just so happened we'd be in the right place, right time. And the guy told me, I manage a $2.1 billion department and do it well. I'm getting ready to lose my $1.1 million house to foreclosure.
Wow.
The number of people I've talked to have an MBA, or they own a business, or they're in sales, or they're in financial whatever, corporate, not corporate, doesn't matter. They might be a rock star at work, but they're all thumbs when it comes to personal finances. And you would think, because actually personal finance is actually kind of easier than business finance in a lot of ways, you would think that would translate over. And so many times it's a lack of training, but then also it's a lack of accountability, because they have instant accountability at the office going, if you screw up that P&L, you're gone.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why my wife and I this year hired a personal trainer.
Oh, cool.
Because we talk about all the time as coaches that we're like the personal trainer for finance. Well, my wife and I were athletic growing up. We lifted weights, we went to the gym, and we even did that as young adults. We know how to eat right and work out, but we weren't. Well, my wife was, I wasn't. And so my muscles were getting lower, my gut was getting out there. I was getting old. I was getting to be that kind of that dad guy that you
dad bod.
Right? And so finally I go, every year at January, I go, this is the year. And I said, not this year. I'm going to swallow my pride again. God opposed the power, because grace is humble. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I just weighed myself this morning, and I haven't been this low in a long time. I've got muscles. I play basketball a couple of times a week. I can jump like I've never jumped since high school. And it's like, oh, what happened? I hired someone to hold me accountable. Yes, I've learned a few new tricks along the way, but a lot of it was, had I not hired this trainer, I can promise you I'd hit the snooze button.
Right. Exactly. I did some research a few years ago leading up to, a newsletter going out in January. Cause I'm like, why don't people's resolutions ever stick? Right. The food, the getting healthy one, you can, I've actually read quite a few articles about nutritionists who talk about it actually starts at Halloween. And so we have Halloween, and then we have Thanksgiving, and then we have Christmas, and then we have New Year's Eve. And then we tack on the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so there's an October to February 4 or 5 month time frame that we have justified to ourselves. We don't need to eat healthy. We're just going to start after X. Mm-hmm. And so I sat there, I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense as to why a lot of people's weight loss resolutions don't work. Right. But why don't the financial ones? Well, I did a whole bunch of research, put it all together in a cute little blog post. And I came up with the fact that 8% of New Year's resolutions are completed by the end of a year. Yep. 8, not 80, not 18, 8.0. And what does that tell you? If 100% of people, let's just call that 100% of people that are making the resolutions, 8% succeed by the end of the year.
Right.
Lack of accountability, lack of having a plan that you're going to stick with. Some people don't necessarily need the accountability. They can follow the plan themselves, but if they don't have the plan, they don't have anything to follow. So it was really mind-blowing for me to see that only 8% of resolutions survive throughout the calendar year.
Well, and how many times do our clients come in going, I don't get it. I don't drive a luxury car. I don't go on luxury cruises. I don't buy the designer jeans. I don't go to the mall. Why are we this broke? And when I hired our trainer, she's like, I want you to track what you eat. And I'm like, I'm not worried about this, because I'm like you. There's only special occasions when I go crazy. Well, every week I'm like, wow, I really did all that, like in a week.
Right.
That was me. And that's what our clients go through. I mean, I tell people, if you spend $30 a day, that's over $10,000 a year. And when I say that, you and I know that, but when someone else hears that, they're like, whoa.
Right. So, okay. There's 10,000 of it. Where'd the other 100,000 go? But now you can see where that pattern develops for sure. So I'm going to say thank you to Laura. Let's get back on track on your story. So Laura says, always listen to the wife, always.
Well, and here's what happened with that. So after that, this is why I called it the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. We basically, in a year, not even counting buying our house, almost doubled our debt. And what I mean by that is our credit cards went up. We got more of a car loan. I went back to school, got more student loan debt. And then we had our first child together in that year, within 18 months of being married, but within a year of finding out that we should have read this book. And then I also really then bought a house. And I've listened to several of your other interviews, and I was one of those that I got into one of those mortgage programs where if you fog a mirror and make $1, they'll find a way to make the thing work. I should have never been approved in my life for the house. And it was so bad. As a banker, who did mortgages. This is embarrassing, folks. I couldn't make my first house payment.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the moment I go, what the heck? I can show you where I was in our house, where I was sitting, the chair I was sitting in. And again, this is pre-social media days and all that. And I just remember grabbing a yellow pad, which is white, but a yellow pad, and I wrote down all of the bills for the first time. Never did that before.
Wow. So what year was this? 2005, 2000?
That would have been 2006.
Okay, gotcha.
And I wrote it all.
I want to point out we're recording this in 2022.
Yes.
This isn't 50 years ago.
Right.
You know, this is 15 years ago. This is less than that. This is not 60 years ago, and here's how Justin's a multi-billionaire now. This is not that far ago. This is not that long ago.
It wasn't. Yeah. And I remember writing everything out, and I just felt this horrible feeling, this burning, gut-wrenching yuck. And I called my wife into our living room. I said, honey, we got kind of a problem. She's like, okay. And she goes, or I go, before we bought the house, we were $200 short a month.
Oh.
We're now $600 to $700 short a month. And this does not include vacation, eating out, car repairs, home repairs, Christmas, school supplies, bare minimum food, bare minimum fuel.
This is just what we would call the four walls now, right?
Yeah.
In your coaching practice, this is just the food, shelter, transportation, utilities, basic clothing, you know, four walls. Yeah.
That's all we could do, plus any of the other bills, as it were. That's it. And we were $600 to $700 in the red. And so I did a dumb thing right after that. What little equity we did have in our house, I then signed up for a debt consolidation loan.
Oh.
So I just compounded the dumb at a high interest rate, but I was going to get rid of the credit card payment. I was going to lower the overall payment, lower the cash flow. But I put our family at risk. And for years, had you come into our house, you would have saw furniture. We live in a college community where once a year, all the apartments in town, everyone dumps their stuff. That's how we got our furniture.
Oh.
My mom actually came to our house one day. She's like, I don't think you've bought anything in this house. Nope.
Right. No.
It was, we were as house poor. We could never take the kids to the movies. We rarely, if ever, got a pizza. It was like we're splitting the Happy Meal. It was almost that bad. And it was a very hard time. And then for me to be a financial professional to boot, that was, talk about embarrassing. It's like, I'm the one that's supposed to tell people what to do. And I'm the one that's broke. I'm the one that's made the mistakes. And so that one mistake of when my wife was willing to say, hey, we need to look at this book, I wanted none of it. And so consequently, I love working with the couple where there's a reluctant spouse.
Yes. Oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So normally at this point, I would say, if you could go back in time, what would you do to change it? But now I want to say, you guys are sitting there with the yellow pad. Is the book still in the house?
The book or the pad?
The book. Had she returned at this point? Had she just given the book back to her friend because she's like, my husband's not going to read this thing. Here you go. Is the book still in the house? Like, where are we?
That specific book is back to the owner. But I don't know how many of these copies. This one's actually autographed by Dave.
Oh, nice.
There it is. But I give out these books all the time now. So I don't have the specific book, but I always tell people the only difference between Dave and I is I've got more hair and he's got more money. And so
you've both done equal amounts of stupid. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, I appreciate that.
So where are we now? We're sitting in front of the yellow pad, and what is your wife doing? Is she going, I told you so? Was there a little bit of that, or was it just, okay, let's go from here and move forward, or where did we leave off from the yellow pad?
I am a very blessed man that my wife rarely throws the I tell you so card at me. I don't even think at the time we even in that moment said, well, who was that guy you mentioned? It wasn't like instantaneous. Okay. I think we were still in such shock. It was more, what do we do now? And we just didn't know. And I don't even remember, honestly, how Dave Ramsey came back into the conversation. I think it was like 6 or 12 months later. Oh, I remember how it was. So when Fox Business, when it first came live as a channel, I used to believe in talking heads had the answers.
So very finance of you.
I know, right? And I always said, man, if Fox came out with a business channel, I would be in. And then fall of 2007, Fox Business went live, and prime time Monday through Friday was Dave Ramsey.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I'm going to give this guy a hearing. And within 3 minutes of watching his show, I'm going, that's it. Wow. And I ate it up hook, line, and sinker. And I couldn't, I mean, again, there was no YouTube, social media back then. There was only radio. He had a couple little small video clips on his website. I ate up everything I could. We couldn't even afford Financial Peace without putting on a credit card, of which Dave wouldn't take credit card. So the way I went to Financial Peace was I taught it.
Oh, cool. Okay. So where did you teach it?
So the bank I was at was very kind. It was a small community bank, and I had gone to them with this proposal thinking it was not going to go anywhere. I went to the executive vice president and I said, hey, I know we got to make money by borrowing, but you and I both know a lot of people go way too far with debt. I would love to do this as a community outreach. What do you think? And I thought for sure he would shoot it down.
Right.
He's like, I love the idea, and I'll take you one further. We'll pay for half the price. And if they go to all 13 weeks, this is back in the 13-week version. If they go to the all 13 weeks, we'll give them the other and it'll be free.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So he was subsidizing the first half. And if they showed up every week, it was going to end up being free. I mean, that really does take out some of the concern for some people, because sometimes these people, when they start the class, they can't even pay for the class.
Yeah. And honestly, I taught 5 classes that year.
Wow.
When I first got the DVD.
5 classes when it was 13 weeks. My goodness, that's a lot. Yeah.
Well, I just got so entrenched in it. And I just remember when I got the DVDs with the leader kit, they called it, I did binge watching before anyone made that term up. I had those 13 DVDs watched in 2 nights.
I have there's a closet right here. There I have.
Right. And that's what activated me to want to go into coaching. Like so many of us coaches, it was not only I was starting to see progress in our financial future.
Right.
But actually, my very first job in my banking career was a mortgage collector. Oh. And I was one of the weird people who liked it, not the collecting side, but I liked trying to find creative ways to make people right side up again. But again, I was 18, 19, 20 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew income needs to be larger than expenses. That's all I knew. And so when this came up, this Financial Peace and the Dave, all of it, it re-energized me to go, I want to help people with their finances in a whole new way than banking. And so that began the journey of getting out of debt and then starting the business.
So from mortgage collector to financial coach, that is quite a journey. So I have to ask, if you could go back in time, where would you have stopped this process, and what would you have done differently?
There's 2 spots. One would have been when my wife mentioned the book. If we would have read the book, I mean, I do. I thought about this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, we would have got out of debt so much quicker. We would have got the house that we always wanted by then. That was one of the big things when we were first married, was we had this vision of this bigger house that we never could go get because we were just tied down. And there's all the boxes we would have checked off could have been checked off sooner. We could have been in a better situation. We could be more generous with our giving. But the other one was, and you know, when I came out of high school, and I'm not mad at my mom, she was just doing the best she could. So if moms are watching, this is not to make you look bad, but she gave me a credit card, and she said, this is to build your credit, which you know how we feel about building credit, but I didn't know any better then.
Right.
And it's for gas purchases only. Ha! Right. I'm a natural spender. That worked for maybe a week.
Yeah.
You can't tell by my hair. I used to be in a rock band, and I literally skipped school to go to the guitar shop. And on the way to the guitar shop, I called the credit card company to raise my limit to buy an amp that professionals use in stadiums for my following of 3.
Wow. That's unbelievable. I am a natural spender also, and I was given the credit card out of high school to go to college with. And I was told it was only for emergencies. So I didn't even have permission to use it for gas, but I knew that, because I don't remember, I was 17 when I went to college. Within a few months, my mother's name would no longer be on the account. It was like it was Fleet Bank, which eventually became Bank of America. So she had to be on the account in the very beginning, but then within the time I turned 18, she would drop off the account. Mom's not going to know. I'll pay it off. It's all going to be fine. Yeah, no, that was a problem.
Right?
My husband and I are both natural spenders, so we need to keep, our Dave personalities in check for sure.
Absolutely. So that was when it happened for me, was because it began. And then one of the things that saddens me is I could have had my college paid for, because within a few months, I had a full-time job that was with a Fortune 100 company that back then did 75% tuition reimbursement, unlimited, plus grants, plus my job with minimal expenses. I could have cash flowed college, no sweat.
Right.
But I had to
easy.
have the guitar stuff. I had to have a nicer car. So I got a nicer car, and which got me a car loan. And I just wish if someone would have sat me down,
right,
I would have listened, because had I listened then, that's the other time I go, I really wish then, because I really did. If someone came to me, like in my math class, one of my math classes, the guy started the class with, if you don't get anything out of this class, I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire. And I'm 19 and I'm going, so wait. And he showed the Ben and Arthur chart. So I saw that way before Dave. I saw it in my math class.
wow.
And so at 19 years old, I have a Roth IRA that I am putting money in every month. But what I didn't know was how much debt robs you, and not having a plan robs you. And so I was living in way too expensive an apartment with all this debt. So I had to stop my Roth IRA. I eventually pulled all the money out.
Oh.
So even though I saw how compound interest works at 19, I didn't go anywhere with it, or I did for about 9 months,
right,
because of the debt, no savings, and not budgeting. And this is why I get so pumped and passionate, because I go, I'm coaching young couples and young kids. I've had a couple in the last couple of weeks, 22, 23-year-olds that I've coached. Oh my, the fact that they're getting it now. I had a client the other day, they're in their early 30s. They knew not to borrow money, and they didn't. They make a decent income, and they already have at 31, 300,000 in the 401k.
Oh, I love it. I love it. There is hope, right?
Absolutely. And I always tell my clients like that, I'm excited, and I might be a twinge jealous. But
yes,
I should have known better, but I didn't.
Right. Exactly. It is hard to make up for lost time, right? Now you're at a place where I'm sure you're putting plenty of money away, but going back to the compound interest chart. So we're going to go a little bit over, but I want you to talk about your small business coaching, because this is, we're financial coaches. Some of us don't like doing the small business coaching. Some of us don't want to do the small business coaching, but this is something that you have added to your practice, and I would love to hear more about it.
You bet. Well, I am a big fan. Like, I'm a fan of Dave Ramsey. I'm also a big fan of a guy by the name of Mike Michalowicz. I cannot spell his name, but
that's good, because I can't even say it. So.
Right. He's best known for the book Profit First, and his goal is to eliminate entrepreneurial poverty, which I love. He's got like 7 or 8 books out. I've got all of them, and I've read them all, but the newest one, just got to get to it in my stack of books that I'm trying to read. But one of the things he talks about is 83% of businesses, according to the Small Business Administration, are not profitable. Wow. And one of my passions why I help small businesses is because I, much like personal finances, did a lot of things in the wrong order and put passion in the wrong area. And there's a lot of business owners who are really good at what they do, but they struggle with managing cash flow. They've never written an actual business plan. And I'm not talking one of those 100-page ones for corporate America. I'm talking like a 1 or 2 page,
right,
kind of business plan. And when I help my clients, it's really no different than personal finance. Once they are aware, and once they have some knowledge with accountability, they're the ones that have become dangerous. And one of the things I love to do, and when I do cash flow analysis, oftentimes one of the things I'm finding is businesses, and I know consumers don't want to hear this in the inflation period, but a lot of the businesses I coach, they don't charge enough. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be weird about it, but I'm like, literally, I've had several new clients just this month of small business. And in both cases, yes, they weren't doing a business budget, which they needed to be doing, but they weren't charging enough. And by the time they paid their overhead and their time, there was no profit.
Right.
And if there's,
I don't want everyone to get scared by the big scary term of cash flow analysis.
Right. No.
Justin's not talking about doing some crazy forensic accounting thing that oh my God, I've never heard of this before. What's this guy going to do? We do this with our personal coaching clients also. I like to call it a forensic analysis of your spending.
Yep.
Pull up your bank account and we're going to go line by line. That's usually their homework leading up to their first session. And you're going to go do a little forensic analysis of how much you spent on groceries the month before we started, how much you spent on gas the month before we started. Because the easy stuff is the fixed stuff, the car insurance, the electric bill is always within X, depending on the season, the gas bill, that kind of thing. But the forensic accounting, the cash flow analysis, whether it's a business or a personal client, is just to go through and see what you guys have been spending money on and how much you're bringing in. Usually with a personal client, it's more fixed. With a business, it can be pretty different month to month, right? And if you're not charging enough, man, you have a slow month, that's going to come back to hurt you for 90 to 120 days.
One of the biggest challenges small business owners have is paying themselves. And what I did, I've been now for over a decade, I've been in straight commission. I was in straight commission with some of my banking jobs prior, but I was really now straight commission. And one of the things that this Profit First taught me how to do that I teach others is how to get them on a salary. Well, I can't pay myself a standard wage because 1 month I'm making a lot of money, the next 2 months I'm making no money. It's like, no, you can. It won't happen overnight. So I show people a way, and Mike doesn't even talk about it in the book. It's something I've added. If you do Profit First, and if within a year, you're not paying yourself a fixed, understood salary, we didn't do something right.
Right.
Because here's what's happening is there's a lot of commingling going on. I mean, you interviewed Christine when she did the tax, which was great. There's a lot of commingling going on. And again, there's just no profit in business. And profit is not a dirty word. We're not talking about greedy corporate America here. We're just talking about profit as a way, because that profit is used to be your business emergency fund. That profit is used to further invest in your business so you can help more people do better things faster. But it's also so you can enjoy.
Right.
Because business owners, when we have extra money, we do one of two things to the extreme. And I learned this from Mike. We either put it all back in the business, or we take it home. And Mike says there's got to be a balance to that. There's got to be both. You've got to have some money that you keep back for your business for various reasons, but you're the business owner, you're taking the risk. You need to be paying yourself some bonuses so you can enjoy and release that dopamine that, yes, good quarter, we did that. Right. And it keeps you going along the way. Right. And so
I put the title of the book down here in case you can't spell McAllowitz, which thank God Justin has said it 4 times because now I know how to pronounce it. But yeah, this is definitely one of the hardest things. Maybe that's one of the few things I got out of going to school for business, is that one of the first things that I implemented before I ever even read Profit First was I need to bring in X. Yep. And this is what I am paying myself every single month. And that is going to be X. And then moving forward, if I have some extra money, oh, sweet, it's going to be X plus Y. It's going to be Y plus Z. It's going to be Z plus A. Sweet. And then if I have a crappy month, we go back down to X, right? But it's always going to be a baseline of X. So I had that from a very beginning. And once I had that, I actually started, when I work with small business clients, we actually implement sinking funds for the stuff that we pay for, because there's a lot of stuff as a business owner you pay for annually, whereas personal budgets is usually coming out monthly. And you can get some discounts, right? So I've implemented sinking funds for my business on top of the sinking funds for my personal life. And I don't think a lot of people take that and transfer that knowledge. And then again, like you said, we've got the baseline of the salary. We're putting money aside for the business, aka the business sinking funds. And then if we have extra on top of that, we have to have a plan for it.
Absolutely. Otherwise, isn't it interesting? 83% of businesses are not profitable. 80% of personal finances are paycheck to paycheck. I don't find that as coincidence.
That's not right. There are no coincidences, right?
And you know this, but when I do business coaching, a lot of it is just awareness.
Yeah.
And when you're aware, yes, there's some knowledge and there's some tools. Again, Mike McAllowitz and even Dave Ramsey's got some business books, John Maxwell. There's a lot of good books out there on business and various topics of business. But when you really know where you're at, and now you know, here's what you've got to do to change, it brings clarity. Because you've really got one of two decisions. Don't change and your business is going to go under.
Right.
Or change and thrive.
Yeah.
And, I interviewed years ago a tax accountant. He was a second generation CPA, and his dad and him mainly did small business. And I asked him, as a young growing entrepreneur, what's some of the biggest things why do people hire you? What's the biggest reason? And he goes, honestly, the biggest reason why business people hire me is because they need someone to talk to.
Jeez.
Because they don't know who to bounce their ideas off of. They can't go to their team members because they're not going to need it. They can't know all the inner workings of what's going on behind the scenes. The spouse doesn't want to hear it every night. So where do I go and talk this out, flesh this out when I've got questions? Proverbs says, with a multitude of counsel, there is safety.
Yeah.
And for a lot of small business owners, this is their proverbial baby.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I remember, in the book E-Myth Revisited, he talks about 80% of small businesses fail in the first 5 years. We've been using 80 a lot today.
Yeah.
Of the 20% of businesses that make it, only 80% of them fail the next 5 years.
Man.
And I will tell you, almost at year 5, I was this close to hanging it up.
Wow, that's interesting.
At year 7, I was that close to hanging it up.
Ah!
So I'm past 10. I'm like, I made it. I'm past 10.
Made it. I am that 20% and the 80% of the 20, or the 20% of the 20% of the 20% of the 20%. Right? Whatever the hell.
I don't say to be braggadocious, but I'm telling you, one thing I also do is I coach coaches. And it's been amazing. Some of the coaches, I'll coach new coaches, but I've also coached some coaches. This is their 4th year, their 5th year, their 6th year.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, let me guess, you're flirting with, why am I doing this? You want to do it, but you're not sure. And they're like, you just read my mail.
Yeah.
And
I equate it to, and I was just having this conversation last night with some of our colleagues, I equate it to losing that first 10 pounds, and then this applies to you doing with the personal trainer, right? The first 10 pounds, especially if you're a guy, don't even get me started, comes off.
Don't get my wife started either on that. But
the first 10 pounds comes off real fast. Maybe a month later, you're at 12 pounds. But then like 3 months later, you're like, I've still only lost 12 pounds. And it's this plateau. And It doesn't just happen in weight loss, guys. It happens in business. It happens in coaching. It happens in your finances. I hit a plateau when I was paying off debt. I had gotten to the 50% mark of my personal debt. And I was like, what just happened? What just happened? I felt like nothing had changed, but I hit that plateau. And so having the counsel, having the coach, having the accountants, having the personal trainer, I mean, man, that's the moral of the story today. Whether your financial coach used to be in a rock band, or your financial coach is Dave Ramsey, it's really the bottom line of today's story. That if in the multitude of counsel, Justin wouldn't have not found himself in that place financially. I wouldn't have found myself in that place financially when I was paying off $90,000 of debt. And yeah, this has been so informative, Justin. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Where can we find you guys? Where can we find you and your contact information?
You bet. Well, you can always go to my website, strongtowerconsulting.com. And I always do a free 30-minute complimentary session, whether you're individual, small business, or a coach. And then also, I only do personal Facebook because that's a whole long story about Facebook I won't get into. But just look up Justin Bennett personally, and you'll see I got a lot of posts of my client successes on there, and my family. I love to brag about my kids and other things there. And so, or you can just email me at justin@strongtowerconsulting.com.
Awesome. And all of Justin's contact information will be in the show notes. And Justin, I can't thank you enough for your honesty and your vulnerability and sharing the dumbest thing you've ever done with money. Thanks again.
Suzanne, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.